Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly COVID-19 government support roundup and Q&A. We're going to go through just any new changes. We're also going to go through literally just the things that aren't available again, because what I've got now is actually something I can show you on the screen, so you can just visualize it as well. And then we have some Q&A. There have been some changes, but it's mainly due to knowing when to actually report furloughing. There will be more changes coming through, and as I've always said, just look at the website, because we are updating it all the time. I'm going to be putting on just what we've summarized in this blog, in this webinar in the blog as well at some point, but Steve will be updating it as things change with HMRC guidance and government guidance on the website. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. Here. So I'm just going to go through all the government support as we know it is now. We have covered some of this last week. So the main thing is the coronavirus job retention scheme. That's where you get the 80% salary, and it's actually changed now. So this is a new thing. So it's changed from the 28th of February to the 19th of March. Now, if somebody was on payroll, but the reason they're saying that is just in case somebody started later. The only issue is that you have to be on RTI. RTI is basically how we report it to HMRC for you if we do your payroll, or if someone else is doing your payroll, that it reports it there. Now, what that means is that if somebody started between the 28th of February and the 19th of March, they probably won't have had a pay slip. So they won't be reported to HMRC. So you actually won't make much difference. The only difference it will make is if you've already reported a pay slip to HMRC via RTI between the 28th of Feb and the 19th of March. Now, we don't do that in payrolls, we do it monthly, and we do that at the end of the month. So if anybody had started on your payroll, and I don't believe there is anyone in that situation, but then HMRC would not have a record of them on your payroll for that period, so you'd still have an issue with that person. They'd probably have to go back to the other employee if they were willing to do that. The other one is the VAT payment deferral. Now, we've told you all just to do this, and it's actually cancelling your direct debits with HMRC if you've got one, and it's between the 20th of March and the 30th of June 2020. So that's just one cycle of VAT, and you can defer that until the April 2021. So you'd have to pay it then. So what we are saying is just make sure you have it tucked away somewhere in a savings account, just so that you don't spend it if you don't need to. However, it is there as a last resort if you need that money to dip into, and it's interest free. Then there's the self-assessment payment on account deferred until January 2021. Now, this is just for your self-assessments. You would be paying something in July. They've said don't worry about paying that. Pay it in 2021. You still need to pay it, so make sure you have the money there. This is definitely of interest if you're a sole trader or if you have a lot of income. HMRC are also happy to discuss anything that you're due to pay HMRC. So and defer it and put you on a payment plan. So if you're having issues with anything, paying HMRC is the first resort. You should probably look at having a payment plan and sort of deferring payment, or actually paying monthly in a plan. They are very open to this because they want to help businesses as much as possible. So they're more helpful than ever on this, because they used to be, quite difficult on it. Then there's a self-employment income support scheme, the SEISS. Now that's if you're self-employed mainly. So if you have a sole trader, you're not a limited company, then you will be getting some monies from HMRC and it'll be the average of the last 3 years self-assessments that you've got, and it'll be the net income that you were taxed on. Now, if you have an income, net income above 50k, then you won't get this grant. So this is a grant. It's a bit like the furlough scheme, but it's for the self-employed. Then there's the coronavirus statutory sick pay rebate scheme. Now, this means that if somebody's sick due to COVID-19 and you have a doctor's note or some notes about it, I don't think it's a doctor's note anymore, you get £94.25 for 2 weeks. Now, you would have had to have had them on statutory sick pay with your payroll, the person, and then you'd have to claim this. So it's not amazing. It's just something there if you need it. Then there's a business rates holiday for retail, hospitality, and leisure. Now that is for the whole of 20 and 21 tax years. So that's all the way up until April the 5th next year, 2021. Then there's a retail and hospitality grant scheme where you can get up to 25,000k from the council. There should be some application for that, I believe, just because it's over the 10k that they give you, which I'll talk about in a minute. Then there's a small business grant scheme, the small business rates relief, if you get that, SBBR, or rural rates relief, the RRR, or taper relief, then you will get this, and you should get it automatically. The council should be sort of writing to you saying that you're going to get it. If you are not paying anything, they'll ask you to go onto a portal, which I've had to do this, and just give them your bank details, and then they'll confirm it, and then they should pay it in to your bank once they've verified everything. I still haven't got my 10,000 for Naylor Accountancy Services from Tunbridge Wells Borough Council, and I requested that last week, but I do know of people who have got that. Then there's coronavirus interruption loan scheme, which is up to £5 million if you need that much, and they allow you that, and up to 6 years repayments. And the government will pay the first 12 months of interest. You'll have to pay the loan repayments over that 12 months, but you can actually use the loan to do that. And then after that, the government is guaranteeing 80% of it, but then you'll go on to whatever the rate is at the end. I have just done a cash flow forecast for a client, and they got a turnaround within 24 hours, and that was with NatWest, and so I thought that was very impressive. And this was of a C-bill, which is what they call these. Now, what I did in that one was I did two scenarios. One was so that furloughing stopped the 31st of May 2020, so the end of May the next month, and then they went back. Lockdown stopped after that, and it went back in June. The other one was where furloughing went on until the 31st of August this year, and they went back in September. Obviously, that's the worst case scenario. The assumption is that from our perspective is that furloughing will be pushed forward every month, but month by month basis until they stop lockdown. But I don't envisage them doing it longer than the 31st of August on the furloughing, just because it will cost the government so much money. And they've said 6 months would be, after that they'd become, they're bankrupt, the UK government. I don't know if that's quite true, but that's what I've heard on the radio. So that's the reason for doing those two. Just so you know, if you do need a cash flow forecast, we're very happy to help you out. Just let us know. There is a fee, but we are giving 10% of that to our outreach in the Philippines. They're having a really hard time at the moment, obviously, because they've got locked down there as well. And it's a lot of difficulties there with people who, have to work just to get their daily income to feed themselves. So I'm just now going to go through some HMRC updates that you may have received via email. So these are legitimate emails. So this is just COVID-19 update. This could have come to you Wednesday or Thursday this week. This is just sort of telling you about the furloughing, so the coronavirus retention scheme, which is, the furlough grant, and what you will need to have. Now, if we do your payroll, we will actually be doing all this for you. We will be asking you, and we have already emailed that to you, asking you to just fill out the spreadsheet that we have, um, just saying who it is that you're going to furlough, when they're going to start, and if there's going to be an end date to that furlough. You will need to let us know whenever somebody's stopping furloughing straight away, so that we don't claim any furloughing for you. Once we've got all that data, we will actually be just requesting that you confirm that you're happy with what we're doing. There will also be a disclaimer, just so that, because we can't be liable for any of this furloughing, just to make sure that you are happy with everything that we are doing for you. We are doing this for free. It will take a long time for us to do in the guys, but we will be doing this to make sure that you get the furloughing grant money to help you and your business. So the next thing, I'm not sure if you've got this or not, but this could have been sent out to you. We've had it from some clients as well. This was Thursday. Um, I believe that this went out, but this is just information. All this yellow highlights, that's me. So I've just put that in there. So this is just telling you that these are the changes basically that we really have just found out this week. And that is that they've moved it, like I mentioned already, to the 19th of March, when an employee has to have worked for you. But you also have to have made an RTI submission, which is what I talked about earlier. So what that means is that we would have had to do a payroll for them if we're doing your payroll, or whoever else if you're doing your own. The other one is here. They're launching the government website on the 20th of April. So that's next week. Now, we've talked about this, Steve and myself, and we do think this portal is going to crash. The reason being, and I mentioned this in my emails this week, is that whenever we have a rush on any HMRC website portal, it always crashes. So that happens sort of December and January every year because of self-assessments, sort of people leaving it right until then to do them online. So that's what we are expecting. So we don't really expect to be able to do much on the 20th of April itself. And also, we also need to make sure you sign everything off. And I know we have got emails from most of you that are doing furloughing. So thank you. If you are doing furlough and you haven't filled in those forms, do fill them on. We actually do want you to fill in, if you're a sole director as well, some of the forms that are just saying that you're happy to furlough, because you are effectively working for the company. So we just want everything confirmed, and it's to give an audit trail to HMRC. The reason for audit trail is they love audit trails, and they can go back 6 years in order to actually audit you. So we don't want anything to be wrong, or them to have any excuse to say, no, the furlough was done wrong. So we want them to show them how that we have done everything correctly according to the guidance currently available to us, and we've done everything in good faith, and so have you. You can only claim online. So like I said, if we do your payroll, we will be doing this for you. It will take a while for us, so don't expect it straight away. There will be one person doing it on the portal for us, and that's all. And we'll have to do one at a time. One person, one employee at a time as well, manually. So it will take a little while. If you hear they're saying 6 days to get the money from when it goes in the claim. Now, we really don't think that will be the case initially, because they're going to have to verify everything. They're also going to have to take, there's going to be so many people doing it all in one go that there's going to be strain. So we think it will take a longer the first time, but then after that, the 6 days, I would have thought for May should be feasible. They can't answer, and this is HMRC, can't answer any questions from employees, and so your employees will have to go to you if they've got any queries. You will be the one actually, and you have to pay up whatever it is you need to pay up to HMRC, to your employee. So whatever we'd send you in a pay slip, you will have to pay that to them. You will then, we'll calculate your employer NI, and we'll calculate your pension that you are entitled to in the furlough on the 80% or the 2,500 max. That you will get as an income. What we're going to do if we do your bookkeeping especially is create an income account in Xero for you. What that's going to do is allocate the income to that. We'll cash code it to it there in the income, and it will be taxable for the purposes of HMRC. There will be no VAT on it, but it will be taxable. So we'll be doing that in the bookkeeping side and allocating it there. If you are doing your own bookkeeping, you will need to create that. We're happy to create that account for you. Just let us know. So that's going to be a furlough grant income account, and we'll be adding that in, and you will allocate it to that when the furlough money comes in, because you will be taxed on it and your corporation tax. If you are doing it yourself, or you're a sole director or anything, or you want to, for some reason, do your own reporting to the portal of HMRC to try and get this furlough grant, then what you will need to do is make sure you have access to your online gateway for your company, and then enroll, as it says in here, to the POA online. Once you've done that, you should then be able to have access to the portal and then put in all the details requested here. And that's it. This was a letter from Jean Hira, the first permanent secretary and chief executive of HMRC. So this is a letter directly from them. It's not actually any of the guidance, because Steve was having a look at the guidance online, but this has literally just come out. So this is a legitimate letter as well. So if you have received it, it is good to bear that in mind. Okay, I am now going to just look to invite Steve in and stop sharing my screen, and we're going to go through some questions that you've had, and also some questions that we may have covered before, because some of them are similar, just to make sure that everything has been covered off. So hi Steve again. The first question is, well, one was, do I have to pay the full salary to the employee if I furlough them?
And the answer to that is no, you don't have to pay the full salary. And in fact, the government guidance for employees quite clearly states the employer doesn't have to pay the full salary. However, this is a matter of negotiation between yourself and your employees, because this is a variant of the contract. So whilst you don't have to pay the 100%, and the government guidance to employees is quite clear on that, you need to agree with your employees that you are paying the lower rate, simply because that is all the funding you can get under the furloughing scheme.
Thanks, Steve. So, and then the other one, this is from you, Bruce. Any additional requirements if we wish to top up the salary to 80% rather than 100% when the salary is above 2,500? So this is above, if he wants to pay more than the 80% or the 2,500.
No, the 80% 2,500 limit, that is literally for how much can be reclaimed. Any additional amounts that you wish to pay your employees, that is entirely a matter between yourself and your employees. It will depend on you being able to afford to pay the additional amount. But yeah, that's completely separate. The 80%, the 2,500, is simply a limit on what you can reclaim from the government. Anything beyond that, you can agree between yourself and your employees quite freely.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, the only thing to add to that is that you would have to pay the employer NI and also the pension, that is due to be paid on that extra 20% or above the 2,500, whatever that is. But as Steve says, you don't have to pay the full 100% salary either. You can pay any increment, 90%, 93%, whatever you wish, 85%. do that. The only thing that is key and is that you get them to sign the furlough agreement. I did send a template. That is only guidance because we're not employment lawyers, but get them to sign that, because furloughing is all new to us here in the UK. It's an Americanism, so it won't be any terms of engagements that you have or any contracts that you have. So you will need them to sign that to agree it. Now they should agree it, just because they're going to be getting some money. Otherwise, you could lay them off and they have nothing. So just make sure they do that. We will be requesting this from you, not because we are checking on you, because we're not going to be necessarily reading through and making sure they're all correct. What we want to just do is know that you've actually done your due diligence and you've actually done that, because we don't want to leave you in a situation where you could be sued by the employee in the future. Next question. What work can I do? Can a furloughed employee do? And this is something we had last week as well, but we just, it's worth definitely reiterating that.
Essentially, a furloughed employee is not allowed to do any work for the business that they are employed by, or any connected or associated individuals or businesses. Now, that second one is to make sure that you don't have a situation where, say, a company puts all its employees on furlough, and then the director as a sole trader employs everybody to do basically exactly the same work. So no work for the business, no work for any connected or independent companies. They are allowed to do voluntary work. They are allowed to do training, even if it relates to the business, provided it is entirely voluntary that they do the training. One thing that has changed from the original is previously it was thought that you could not do any other work for anybody. It has now been clarified that it's potentially employees could take on a second job whilst they are furloughed, subject to them not being prevented from doing so by a clause in the employment contract.
Thank you. Yeah. And one thing is that, they can actually work for a competitor, which I know I mentioned last time as well, potentially, which is a bit odd. And so, yes, no, not exactly the best. And Bruce has a follow-up question on this, actually, which is, do you need to change your furlough agreement, which it actually says that they can't work if they're on furlough at all? The answer to that is we're not employment lawyers, but the answer I would say is don't change it, because as long as you are saying that, then they can't, and there's nothing wrong in saying that, because I think that's very, very, very good reason to do so. I don't know if you've got any comments on that, Steve.
Yes, I mean, the only thing that clause actually commits the employee to, if they do other work, is repaying anything that you are unable to reclaim under the furloughing scheme as a result of them doing that work. So because that is the only consequence of them doing it, you're not going to create any more sort of liabilities for your employees if you don't change that. It's probably a good idea to keep it in there, not only because employees could end up working for competitors, which is a possibility, but if they do take on a second job, then when you wish to finish the furlough, they may not be able to leave that second job immediately, which means they may not be able to come back to you directly. Which obviously would have an impact on getting the business up and running after the furlough cease. But yeah, it's not creating any extra liabilities on employees there for keeping it in, even though, as you say, it is possible to have a second job now.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Next question is, as the director of a company, can I furlough myself? And we have had this question before. I mean, so I don't know if you want to answer that, Steve.
Yeah, directors can furlough themselves. The requirements for employees is that employees do no work at all. Directors are actually permitted to do work in order to keep the company ticking over. This has now actually been formally clarified in both the guidance and the regulations that came out. It was our view quite early on that a director that was simply keeping the company ticking over wasn't breaching the rules, but fortunately that is now covered in the guidance and regulations as well. The important thing is they are not doing any work for customers or anything that would generate income, that is the thing that would breach the no working requirements for furloughing. But if all the director is doing is simply keeping the company ticking over, collecting debts that had arisen before the furloughing, and indeed running the payroll in order to do the furloughing claim, then all that should be fine. It's anything that where you're doing work for customers or generating extra income that's out.
Thank you. Then this is from you, Yen. How would a sole director go about with furlough process for themselves? Now, I'll just answer that only because I covered it at the start, just with that letter from email from HMRC. Basically, you'd have to go, or well, actually, the government, you'd have to go to create a gateway portal if you don't have it for your business, then apply for the online PAYE, and then put the details into the portal. Then the portal should be there, and we haven't seen the portal yet, so I can't tell you 100%. And then hopefully that should be good to go. I can't see how easy it will be to do all that if you haven't got the gateway already, because you have to wait for everything to come through the post. But that's what you'd have to do. When will I get the money from the when will I get the money for furloughed employees? I have covered this a bit, but I'll let Steve.
Yeah, HMRC has said it will be within 6 days of the claim, but given the sheer volume of people that are going to be claiming, as well as having problems with the portal itself, we suspect there will be problems with actually getting the money out within that 6-day window. If they can meet it, then that will all be well and good, but I would not rely on the 6-day window for any cash flow forecasts. If your cash flow indicates that you absolutely need that money to come in within 6 days, then you probably want to look at alternate sources of finances. Originally, they were looking at sort of 10 to 14 days. We think that is much more feasible for at least some of them. I mean, some will come within 6 days, but it's extremely unlikely they'll get the sheer volume of claims through that quickly.
Yeah, I think that's just worth knowing on the cash flow basis. Just be aware of that, and don't rely. And this is what I've mentioned in the email I sent. Don't rely on this furlough money for your cash flow. It's going to be an extra, not until I would say May, just in case. End of May, just in case. Just be wary of that. A question from you, Bruce, is will Naylor Accountancy be, if we're doing your payroll, doing everything, do you need to do anything? And just if there's anything that you need to do, contact HMRC or anything. The answer, Bruce, is no, you don't have to do anything at all to HMRC. You don't have to contact them. We'll be doing everything for you. You will need to let us know if there's any issues from employees. It's also, we want you guys, we'll see it in the bookkeeping, but if you, when you do receive the income, it's always nice to just get an email saying, oh, we've received it, just so we know how long it is taking everybody to receive this money. We will be requiring all those templates which you have sent, Bruce, and most of you have as well. But if you haven't, do send them, and then we'll be sending something just saying this is what we're going to be furloughing amounts, and just a disclaimer as well, just so that you can sign that and make sure you're happy with us doing it. And at that furloughing, we are using all the guidance, so everything's actually, we wouldn't do it unless we are happy with it. So from our perspective, it will all be okay with the guidance, and as long as we all aware of it's using the guidance, then we can show to HMRC if they audit it within 6 years, that we've done everything in our, in the right way as far as we are aware. Okay. Next question. Do I have to pay, have we done this? Sorry. Do I have to pay the employees before I get the funding from HMRC? I don't think we've covered that yet, have we?
Right. I mean, this is a question that has been very much a debate in accounting circles, and really the answer is yes, you should be, because otherwise you are effectively taking a loan from your employees, and there may well be legal ramifications of that. Obviously, the legal ramifications are something we can't cover. But you also have to bear in mind that these are the people that the whole point of this scheme is they are going to be carrying on working for you afterwards. And if you do take a loan from them, a forced loan from them, then you are going to lose a lot of goodwill from those employees, and that is definitely going to have an effect on your business afterwards. Now, if you literally do not have the funds available and you have no way of getting the funds, then that's something you need to discuss with the employees. But yes, strictly speaking, yeah, you should be paying the employees, in the normal periods that you do pay them, the monthly, weekly, whatever you're normally paying the employees. You should stick to that routine, even if you haven't got the furlough money coming in. We're now quite close to getting the furlough money, so hopefully there will not be an enormous sort of gap between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I would just reiterate what Steve said. If you aren't able to, you just have to get an agreement with your employees that this is the situation. You will pay them when you get the furlough money, but it's not the ideal situation. But if you have to do that, you do need just to make sure they're happy with that. They should be, because otherwise they won't get any money. And that's the whole point. But do make sure they sign the furlough agreement as well. And you may just want to have that in the furlough agreement so that you've got a signed document saying they will receive that once you receive money. Even if it's not the right way, you've at least got something signed by them. We've covered this. How do I access the coronavirus retention scheme? So that we've sort of said that we've got all the details. It's the portal, and then you put all your details in as they request, and with your bank details. We'll be doing that for you, as I've said. So, I think we've covered. If it's self-employed, when do I get something? As in the grant, the SSGIS, and can I still work?
Right. To cover the second part first, with the self-employed, you don't have the requirement to cease working in the same way you do for employees. I think this is probably a sort of more pragmatic view of the government, in that employees, it's a lot easier for them to tell whether they are working, because they're working for one business. So usually be working in one place, so that's a lot easier for HMRC and the government to check whether employees have continued working. With the self-employed, they could be working for anybody. It would be almost impossible to police. So I think the government have taken the pragmatic view on that given it's impossible to police, making it a requirement that the self-employed stop working, it's just not practical. You still have to have had a reduction of income as a result of the virus, and we've seen that with a quite wide variety of clients. Some that would not be immediately obvious. For example, we have a carpenter client. Most of his work he does in people's houses, and people aren't having people around their houses at the moment. So there's the work is still there, but it's not going to be happening for a few months down the line. As for when it's going to come in, at the moment, unfortunately, the earliest that is coming in is June. We don't have a definite date in June yet. We will hope it was sooner rather than later. That might be dependent on how well the job retention scheme portal goes, because in a lot of ways the entries on the job retention scheme could very similarly be used for a self-employed scheme. So it might be possible for them to sort of piggyback off that and create the self-employed portal a lot more quickly. But yeah, June is the only date we have at the moment, and not even a firm date in June. So the moment we hear more than that, we shall share that around among our self-employed clients.
Thank you. Yeah. Now, I think this may be the final, unless there's any other questions, please just fire them in. Is how do I get to the small business grant scheme? I know I've covered this a bit, but I'll let you go onto that, Steve.
Right. What the money is definitely gone out to councils now, and what is supposed to have happened is that the councils all contact the businesses that are eligible for it, which those with small business rate relief or rural rate relief. That's businesses generally, and hospital, retail, and leisure potentially an up to a £25,000 grant if they've got slightly larger premises, less than 51,000 rateable value. But yes, that is what is supposed to have happened. But in fact, the guidance that's been handed out to councils across the country hasn't been clear. So there has been a great variation in how councils have dealt with it. Some have got directly in touch with all the local businesses and have started paying the grants out directly. Some have sent out contacts asking for applications to be made. And in a way, the requirement for applications is probably going to be necessary for a number of businesses, because the council won't necessarily have the details for bank accounts to pay the grant into. So they need an application to be made to get those details. Some councils have simply put an application form on their website, but not publicised it, which is very much against the spirit of the scheme. But there is a local website. There's a website called on the government website about finding your local council. And if I just share my screen for that, right, so I live down in Hastings, so I've done a search for my postcode and to come with 2 local councils. So there's East Sussex County Council, Hastings District Council. It's the district councils that administer business rates, so it's the district councils you need to look at. Because I'm friends with a number of local businesses, I've been talking to them about this. I know that Hastings Council, they have actually been contacting businesses. They do have an application on their website. But if you believe you are eligible for the scheme, but you haven't heard anything yet, go to this site, which I'll copy into the chat and we'll send out as well. Do a search for your postcode, find out who your district council is. They will have a page on the coronavirus COVID-19 support, and that page should have an application on it, which will allow you to put your claim in for whatever grant you think you are due to get.
Thanks, Steve. Can't see any more questions, guys. So if you have got any more, let us know. Steve, have you got anything to add that you want to at the end?
I mean, one thing people have been asking is are the grants, the coronavirus prevention scheme, all this money coming in, is taxable? And the answer is, for corporation tax and income tax, yes. It is considered taxable income, though obviously with the job retention scheme, the furloughing, it should be matched by the wages going out. So it's it should be a net nil for tax purposes. What it isn't is subject to VAT, because VAT requires there to be a supply to whoever you're receiving the income from, and there is no supply in this case, so you don't have to account for VAT on any of this income coming in, and it will not count towards whether an unregistered business needs to become VAT registered. It is completely outside the scope of VAT. But yeah, income tax, corporation tax for the business, it will be considered a taxable receipt for those.
Thank you. What I just add as well is just keep looking at our blog. We will be updating it constantly with any sort of new news as well. These are going to be weekly, so we're going to be doing this. The idea is every Thursday, similar time, 10:30. I will put it on the website, and then we'll also be emailing it out, but it'll be a recurring one. I don't envisage these being as long as this every week. I can imagine there might even just be 15 minutes long, and we will just focus on what's new. I know, Graham, you asked about what is new this week. I sort of mentioned that all at the start. So I hope that covered off everything that you wanted to know was new. I think it is just something worth bearing in mind that we have now we are just now getting tweaks to the guidance. And also there could be, like if it's extension, because we've just found out it's an extra 3 weeks for lockdown. So we've got another 3 weeks of lockdown. So if there is any extra news, we will let you know. I will also look to put this on the website, and I will be emailing out a recording to you all. So everybody be safe. and sort of have a good weekend, and hope that this all sort of goes through quickly, and we all get back to normal business soon. Okay, bye. Take care.